I have a joist bearing of 2'6", and then my joists themselves are 7¼ inches, and my subfloor is 3/4 of an inch. So if I'm laying that out right here, I've got my subfloor is 3/4, my joists are 7¼ and the joist bearing height is 2'6". If I add these all up, 3 foot 2 inches, or 38 inches. The next step we want to do is we want to figure out how many risers we're going to have. Maximum riser height is 7 inches. So if I wanted to figure out how many risers there were with a maximum height of 7 inches, I'm going to take that 38 inches, I'll pop this down here, 38 inches divided by 7, which is telling me 5.42. But we can't have a partial riser, so we got to round up to the next nearest number, so that's going to be 6. So in this example here, we're going to have 6 risers. Next thing we want to do is figure out our riser height. So I'm going to take that 38 inches again. Now I'm going to divide it by 6 risers. And that comes up to 6.33 inches. So each riser height is 6.33 inches. So now I want to find out the number of treads. Remember, there's always one extra riser compared to threads because we start, the stairs start with a riser and end with a riser. So if there is 6 risers, therefore there's 5 treads. And then I also want to figure out the run of the stairs, which our treads are 11 inches right now. So I've got 5 treads at 11 inches. 5 times 11 is 55. So my run is 55 inches. So this is the math we need to do before we start drawing. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to lay out our stairs. Again, the first thing we want to do, we want to figure out where I'm figuring out our run, 55 inches. So I'm gonna mark that here. So that's 4'7". I'm gonna put this tick mark right here. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that little method that I showed you guys before when we want to divide something into equal spaces. So in this example here, I've got 5 treads at 11 inches. So if I just go to a part of my scale, and for this one, I'm just going to use the 1-inch scale. I'm going to line my 5. Here, actually, I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to lay my 0 at the bottom so we can see that better. And I'm going to keep that 0 right on that point, at that 55-inch point. I'm just going to rotate it up here. Oh, another thing I did too is I just extended a straight line up, like a little guideline here. And I'm going to line up my 5. So it's on that line, and I'm going to keep my 0 on that point. And I'm just going to divide this into 5 equal spaces. So when I draw these lines coming straight down, that is going to create 5 equal 11-inch treads. So I'm just lining up my square from these points, and I'm just going to draw some lines down. And I'm just going to use those as guidelines for later. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my risers. So I've got 6 risers, and I think I'm just going to take the 3/4 inch, I think. And I'll do it this way so you guys can see that better. Now instead of going, when I'm figuring out my risers, I'm going to kind of do that the same way, except I'm going to figure 6 equal spaces. So I'm going to line up the bottom. I'm going to put my 0 at the bottom on the floor, and I'm going to line up that 6 at the top of the subfloor. I'm going to push this over so that's more legible. So, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw this little dash line here. I'm just going to mark these off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are my 6 equal spaces for my risers. Now I'm just going to draw a horizontal line kind of across here. And actually, don't mind me, I'm just going to rotate this. It's just going to be easier for me to draw. You can see what I'm doing. And I'll rotate it back as soon as I'm done. So I know it might be hard to see right now because I just have it in pencil. I just drew it lightly so I have a guideline. I'm going to erase these diagonals so it eliminates any confusion that we have. We'll kind of go from there. So now I essentially have my stairs kind of laid out here. So my first riser is starting at that 55-inch mark that I had. So I'm going to draw that. And now I'm just going to make this just a little bit darker. I'm going to draw this line over here, which is going to be my first tread. Now I'm going to draw my second riser, which is coming from this second vertical line that I drew. And the third vertical line right there. And then I'm also going to kind of fill in my treads also. So basically I've got first riser, second riser, third riser. Put my fourth riser right here. And I've got my first tread, second tread, third tread. I'm just going to pop my fourth tread in right here. Now I'm going to do my next riser. And I'm going to do my last tread. So now what I'm going to do, and now I have my 6.33-inch risers, and I've got my 11-inch treads. So if we look at our example that I had, we were showing that our riser has some thickness to it. And that is typically 3/4 of an inch thick. And I also wanted to show that our tread would be typically 1.25 inches thick, and that it would overlap 1 inch. So that's going to be our nosing. And so this is going to be our riser. It's going to be our tread. And then we would have our next riser and our next tread. Keep going accordingly. So I'm going to start at the bottom. And remember, we're going 1 inch past, and it's about 1.25 inches thick. So there's our first tread. And then I'm going to draw the thickness of my first riser. Underneath that. Now I can kind of do the same thing. one thing I need to do too, just notice how I have this here, and this could be two different ways. This could come down like this, and you could put your riser first and have your tread there, or you can have your tread down and put your riser on. So typically how I have it is I run my tread, and then I'm gonna put the riser on top of that. So when I do draw this riser, it has to go the thickness of that tread. I'm going to try to do that a little bit better here. So I'm going to draw that, making sure that I have my nosing, and then making sure it extends past for that riser. So now when I draw my riser in, so there you go. And again, these are 11 inches and 6.33 inches is my riser height. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to draw my stringers. And in our homework assignment, we had called out that we're using 2x12 stringers. So how I do that is if I'm going to just draw a kind of a diagonal line, like right here, coming from where the top of my risers are. If you can kind of see that. And then if it's a 2x12, it's 11.25 inches. So I'm going to draw another 11.25 inch line offset below it. And then I'm just going to continue this like such. So by doing that, this distance from this corner to this corner is 11.25 inches. So when they take this 2x12 and they cut their stairs out, they're going to cut these little triangles out right here, and that's going to leave the maximum depth of that joint of that 2x12, so it can support the stairs. I'm just going to go over that with a marker. There's a lot of ways they would handle doing the end. I'm just picking one kind of random way right now. And there's our stair. I'm going to put a little hatch in here to show that this is like a concrete. And then the final thing we'd want to do is we want to put a dimension on this for the overall. So I'm going to put that up here. You can either put it on the top or on the bottom. I didn't really leave myself a lot of room to put it on the bottom. So I'm just going to put it up here. And I'm going to call this 5 treads at 11 inches equals 55 inches. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my height. Put a dimension line there, and that is 6 risers at 6.33 inches equals 3 foot 2 inches.